Welcome back to another episode of the Heroic Minds podcast. Today we are going to sandwich together Morgan Freeman, dialectical behavior therapy, and performance. Performance in sport, business, healthcare, whatever you do for a living when you need to dial it in and perform. So yes, we're going to sandwich those three together. So first let's talk what everyone's probably most curious about, Morgan Freeman. How does he play into this whole thing? So in the movie Evan Almighty, Morgan Freeman plays the character of God. And in one of the scenes, he's talking to another character and he says something so incredibly powerful. Whether you're a religious, spiritual person or not, I think it's equally as powerful. So he says to the character, let me ask you something. If someone prays for patience, do you think God gives them patience? Or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? He says, if he prayed for courage, does God give him courage? Or does he give him the opportunities to be courageous? If someone prayed for the family to be closer, do you think God zaps them with warm, fuzzy feelings? Or does he give them opportunities to love each other? So what I think is so powerful about this, again, whether you're a spiritual, religious person or if you're not, is this concept of being present and waiting for an opportunity to act in a certain way or to allow yourself to feel a certain way. And where this ties into now dialectical behavior therapy, which I'm sure many people have heard of, I want to go through that. So what is DBT? That's the acronym. DBT is simply CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is thoughts, emotions, behaviors, right? How those three interact. And you look at them and say, well, my behaviors make me think this and feel this, or you can do it another way as my thoughts make me behave this way and feel this way, right? So it's kind of a spin-off of CBT. But it also brings in Zen Buddhism or mindfulness, you could say. So the four parts of DBT are actually very interesting. This is where things become quite powerful. So the first part is mindfulness. I won't go into explanation on that. Awareness of yourself and awareness of your external environment. We'll say, keep it simple there. The other piece is distress tolerance. So your ability to improve the moment, self-soothing, thinking of pros and cons, and thinking of the pros and cons of not tolerating stress. The next one is interpersonal effectiveness. So that is being kind to people, also setting boundaries for yourself. It's being assertive. So how effective are you interpersonally with other people where you're creating bonds, but you're not devaluing your own emotions and goals and needs, right? So there's some skills there. The last piece is emotion regulation. So your ability to regulate your own emotions. That's the high level view of DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, the spin-off of CBT. So how is this powerful in relation to Morgan Freeman saying, why don't instead of asking for a favor, asking for something to be done, does God actually do that? Or does that mindful experience, that practice of prayer, that practice of being mindful, that practice of being calm somewhat in the storm and waiting for a feeling, waiting for an opportunity, is that what brings out the ability to tolerate stress, to improve your interpersonal effectiveness? And dialective, the term itself, dialectical, is the in-between. It's the gray between black and white. I would say it's potentially the patience between agitated and maybe too laissez-faire. Right? It's the middle, and it's allowing that middle to surface, right? So this could be a time when you're angry, right? You're really angry. You want to get back at someone and you stop. And for whatever prayer is to you, whatever mindfulness is to you, it's to stop and allow that feeling of patience to surface. You're angry. You want to go act. You want to do something. And you wait for that opportunity to be patient. Wait for that opportunity to be calm. It's in you. It's possible. You could be calm in that situation, right? You could find that improving in the moment, right? Under the distress tolerance in DBT, you could find self-soothing. You could find thinking of the pros and cons of tolerating distress, right? So it's allowing that opportunity to surface. I want to take this even further now. Bring in some neuroscience here. And just a reminder, everything we talk about on these podcasts are always in the descriptions of these episodes. So all the links where I get all my information is always there. You can check stuff out. So it's interesting that with prayer and meditation, there's a shift. The cognitive control, like our thoughts, they shift from explicit to implicit, right? So when we're in prayer, when we're being mindful, when we're waiting for an opportunity to behave in an ideal way, right? Because obviously this is about improving our behavior, moving in the direction of who we want to be. When we experience the practice of meditation, of mindfulness, of prayer, I would even say pausing and reflecting, is we move from explicit to implicit. Implicit being more automatic motivation that comes from within, something that we can't necessarily quantify, measure, or even articulate. Whereas explicit is more of a deliberate willpower, forcing or guiding ourselves to do something. I think you could call it the metaphorical, whip of forcing ourselves to act or behave in a certain way. And so isn't that fascinating? Because that burns energy, right? So it's really cool that simple pause to wait for an opportunity to act in a way we want to act also will lead us to find an internal or intrinsic implicit motivation as opposed to that extrinsic forcing ourselves to act in a certain way. Wait for that opportunity to arise, or should we say allow that opportunity to arise. So I said I was going to include performance in this episode, and that's where I'm going to conclude. So let's flip things over to sport, to whatever that high performance is for you. Of course, my background would be sports. So let's say we're in our stall, game's about to start, anxiety's high, uncertainty's high, angst is high, big game, finals, and then you do whatever you call this: prayer, meditation, mindfulness, a pause, reflection, whatever that is to you. And we take all this into consideration, everything we just talked about, and we say, we'd love the opportunity to be calm, but also be courageous. I'd love to be calm and courageous here. That's what I would love the opportunity. No one has to do that for me. I know I can do it. I'd love the opportunity to act that way, to be that way. A little pause, right? There's neuroscience. There's two things here I want to talk about when it comes to performance and this experience. Is one, when you pray and you use more of an internal narrative, they've shown scans of people having conversations and people in a similar prayer type state, and the scans are similar, showing that prefrontal cortex is going, that the problem solving area of the brain is going. So you are actually induced in some sort of problem solving behavior, which is awesome, I think. Maybe you have a different opinion. I think that's pretty cool. So we're having that conversation. We're moving towards a solution, hopefully moving towards finding that behavior, that feeling that we want, so we can go out and perform. So that's number one. The other piece is in a article on prayer and meditation as it relates to flow. And I know in the performance space, I think in everyone's space, I know flow is blown up. I want to be in the flow state. I want to be in the flow state. We're in that zone where time kind of warps and we're not really thinking, we're just doing, right? Our subconscious takes over and we're just doing things, solving problems. A little piece from this article on the idea of prayer, meditation, and flow says, people with hope for success are more likely to experience flow compared to individuals high in fear of failure who experience less flow when balanced. And of course, we know the skill and challenge and flow has to be similar, right? Challenge that's too high takes us out of flow. Challenge that's too easy takes us out of flow. So this is obviously, this paper was talking about when that's balanced, when you're in flow. So what this brings me back to is if you're going out to perform for something, I'm making the assumption you have the skills, right? I'm making the assumption the challenge is right level with your skills. You can do it. You have the ability. But what happens is we get in our own way. Why? Because we think negatively. I can't do this. We lost the last 2 games. My last 2 performances weren't very good. Those negative thoughts, so on and so forth. So I'm not talking skill or challenge. I'm not talking about those two or adjusting those two. That's up to you. I'm talking about the mindset we go in with. And do we take a page out of Morgan Freeman on this one? And before the game, in between periods, in between shifts, sit back and allow that opportunity to come to us. All right. That's all I've got for you today. Again, feedback, comments, ideas, stories, characters, anything you have for me, I encourage all feedback. I'm Ben Fanelli. This is the Heroic Minds podcast. We'll talk again soon.